The question of the soul, whether humans possess an immaterial, non-physical essence, has fascinated philosophers, theologians, and scientists for centuries. Across cultures, religions, and eras, the soul has been portrayed as the core of human identity, consciousness, and morality. It is often described as the enduring aspect of ourselves, capable of surviving physical death. Yet, when we turn to contemporary science, the story becomes more complex. Neuroscience, psychology, and cognitive science have provided extensive insights into human behavior, cognition, and consciousness. But despite these advances, the soul as a distinct, non-physical entity remains elusive. Modern science has not found empirical evidence for a separate soul beyond brain activity. In this video, we will explore what science says and does not say about the soul. We will examine philosophical perspectives, scientific research, consciousness theories, and anecdotal phenomena, and discuss why the question remains open. The scientific perspective. From a strictly scientific standpoint, consciousness and personality are generally understood as products of the brain. Neuroscience has mapped brain regions responsible for memory, emotion, decision-making, and self-awareness. For instance, studies using functional MRI, fMRI, and EEG have linked neural activity to specific thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Damage to particular brain areas can drastically change personality or consciousness, suggesting a strong connection between mind and matter. Yet, despite these insights, science has not detected a non-material entity separate from brain activity. Experiments to locate or measure the soul have consistently yielded null results. Conscious experiences, in neuroscientific terms, emerge from electrical and chemical interactions within neurons. If the soul existed as a separate, immaterial object, we would expect at least some observable influence on physical matter or measurable deviations from predicted brain function, but no such evidence has been found. Most scientists, therefore, adopt a materialistic approach. Consciousness and identity arise from brain activity, not from a supernatural or non-physical soul. In this framework, questions about the soul fall outside the empirical domain, making them speculative rather than testable. Philosophical approaches. Despite the lack of direct evidence, philosophical perspectives provide compelling arguments for a non-physical soul. One of the most famous is René Descartes' dualism. In the 17th century, Descartes proposed that the mind and body are fundamentally distinct. The body is physical, while the mind, or soul, is immaterial. According to Cartesian dualism, consciousness cannot be fully explained by physical processes alone. This perspective leaves room for a soul that exists independently of the brain, interacting with it but not reducible to it. Philosophers have also debated personal identity. What makes you you? Is it your memories, your body, your brain, or something more? Some argue that continuity of self across time implies a non-physical aspect. If the soul is the essence that persists despite physical changes, it could explain why we maintain a sense of identity even as our neurons die and regenerate. David Chalmers, a contemporary philosopher of mind, framed this issue as the hard problem of consciousness. While neuroscience can explain how brains process information, it struggles to account for subjective experience, the what it feels like to see red, taste chocolate, or feel joy. These qualia, or subjective sensations, suggest that consciousness may involve more than mere physical processes. Chalmers' work does not prove the existence of a soul, but it highlights an explanatory gap in purely materialistic accounts of consciousness. Quantum consciousness theories. Some researchers have proposed that consciousness may have quantum or non-classical elements. Physicist Roger Penrose, for example, hypothesizes that quantum processes in microtubules within neurons could contribute to consciousness in ways that cannot be fully explained by classical physics. Proponents of quantum consciousness suggest that certain aspects of awareness or decision-making may exist beyond deterministic brain activity. Critically, these ideas remain highly theoretical. They offer intriguing possibilities but do not constitute empirical proof of a soul. Quantum processes could explain unique properties of consciousness, but they do not necessarily imply a separate immaterial essence. Nevertheless, they challenge the strict materialist perspective and invite further exploration into the limits of neuroscience. Near-death experiences and anecdotal evidence. Another line of evidence often cited in discussions about the soul comes from near-death experiences, or NDEs. Many individuals report leaving their bodies, seeing bright lights, or encountering deceased relatives during life-threatening events. Some interpret these experiences as evidence for a soul that exists independently of the body. However, scientists approach NDEs cautiously. Brain imaging and neurological studies suggest that such experiences can result from oxygen deprivation, chemical imbalances, or abnormal neural activity. While they are fascinating phenomena, NDEs lack rigorous validation as proof of a soul. They may reflect the brain's extraordinary capacity to generate vivid, meaningful experiences under extreme conditions. Limits of science. One important consideration is that science itself has limitations. The scientific method relies on observation, measurement, and reproducibility. Anything that is non-physical, immaterial, or metaphysical is inherently difficult to study with empirical methods. This does not confirm the soul exists, but it does mean that science cannot categorically dismiss the idea either. Some thinkers argue that the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because we cannot detect the soul with our current tools does not mean it does not exist. Philosophical, theological, and spiritual frameworks continue to explore the concept, providing alternative ways of understanding consciousness, morality, and identity. Bridging science and philosophy. Many contemporary scientists and philosophers suggest a middle ground. While the soul cannot be empirically verified, exploring consciousness, subjective experience, and personal identity can inform ethical and philosophical questions. Even if the soul is metaphorical rather than literal, it remains a useful concept for thinking about human nature, responsibility, and the meaning of life. For example, cognitive science increasingly recognizes the complexity of subjective experience, social identity, and moral reasoning. These areas cannot be fully reduced to neurons firing in isolation. Whether we call this emergent property a soul or not, it highlights that human consciousness involves more than simple physical processes. Conclusion. In conclusion, the scientific justification for a soul as a non-physical entity remains unproven. Neuroscience and cognitive science have not detected any independent soul beyond the brain. Consciousness, memory, personality, and thought are linked to neural activity, and damage to the brain can profoundly alter these traits. Yet philosophical arguments, consciousness research, quantum theories, and anecdotal reports suggest that a strictly materialist view may not capture the full picture of human experience. The hard problem of consciousness, personal identity, and the limits of empirical methods leave room for speculation about a non-physical essence. Ultimately, whether a soul exists may be a question that transcends science and enters philosophy, spirituality, and personal belief. While we may never have definitive empirical proof, exploring these questions encourages reflection on what it means to be human, conscious, and alive. The debate between scientific skepticism and spiritual or philosophical belief is ongoing. For now, the soul remains a compelling concept, a bridge between the observable world and the mysteries of consciousness.